Hey everyone, we're at Computex 2018 at EK Suite now, and they have a couple of pretty interesting things. First off, a lot of this stuff is still prototype stage, so don't have prices, release dates, stuff like that. But there's actually an opportunity for some viewer engagement here because they're looking for feedback on a few products. So comment below as you watch stuff, I suppose, and let them know what you think of each thing. Before that, this video is brought to you by Thermaltake's View 37 case. The View 37 focuses on highlighting custom PC builds with its full panoramic window and tinted front acrylic. In our thermal testing, the View 37 performed reasonably well when considering its looks-focused build, which is partly thanks to the airflow design and the removal of a bottom power supply shroud. For a balance of looks and performance, check the link in the description below for the View 37. The main thing we'll be talking about is, I guess we'll start with the EK Wooden as the current code name product. So these are just wood plates for CPU blocks, GPU blocks, stuff like that. And right now the idea is basically a custom kind of one-off CNC wood plate that you can choose from, but if there's enough interest, EK is considering doing more of a not necessarily mass-produced, but an en-masse product. So if you're super interested in these, let them know. But I mean, basically it's just a cover, so it's a wood cover. They have different types of wood. It's more or less handmade, so it's CNC'd, and then they go through and hand garnish and stuff like that. So kind of cool, definitely very different, and also the fittings have wood around them as well. So that's just quick coverage on those. The more sort of end user products will eventually be this thing. So this is a follow-up to the Phoenix line that we covered recently, semi-recently, and it's kind of, so it's got the integrated pump on it. Right now it's a prototype. The pump in there isn't the final version, so we weren't able to see the impeller or anything like that. But it looks much larger than it is because the fans are housed within the sort of exterior shell of the radiator, and then there's obviously radiator, fans push through it. It's currently a, what is this, a 240? 240, and then the block is where it's a bit interesting as far as I'm concerned anyway, because the block is more of an open loop style block. You can also detach the fitting. So if you wanted to go semi-open, semi-closed loop, like with the Phoenix line, you can do that by detaching the fittings and then opening up the loop with presumably future products. So this one doesn't have a name yet. It's prototype as stated, but basically a Phoenix follow-up. It's a bit less boxy looking than the Phoenix and has a bit more brand presence on the block as well. So that's kind of what they're going for with it. There's another one behind it, which we'll have B-roll of, and that is the Fluid Gaming Hydra. So this one, I don't know the supplier. It's not Asetek. We'll take it apart eventually and find out. Apoltech is common, Dynatron's common. Coolit is less common, probably not Coolit. So we'll take it apart later and look at it, but the block's interesting. Otherwise, standard radiator, standard fans, and I should mention, the fans, there's a new Vardar Extreme Fan, which has slightly different blade design. Functionally, same idea, just digital RGB LEDs on it, and they can be daisy changed. So there are actually two RGB headers on there if you want to daisy chain them. Not really something we typically cover, but worth mentioning because I know the Vardar fans have a really cult following with our viewers, and then also the outer side here has 8 different color options. So if that's your thing, they're going to have it. And then I think we're getting into some more of the fluid gaming stuff on this side. So these are new GPU plates. So there's an aluminum. They're both aluminum options, but one is UV printed and the other one's just an aluminum plate. So this is where the viewer engagement comes in. If you're interested in either of these, let them know. The problem is with an EK fluid gaming product, you're kind of targeting budget users anyway. So once you start doing fancy stuff with the plate, the price will go up. It's just a question of would you rather get the fluid gaming aluminum kit with a more customized block and pay more for it, or forego that stuff and just go with the copper loop. And it's going to be less fancy looking, but it'll be copper loop. So let them know. Also, the UV printed version would be a lot cheaper than the aluminum topped version that I just held up. And then the final thing to talk about is the Threadripper stuff. So Threadripper 2 is around the corner. We don't 100% for sure know yet what the die orientation or which dies will be populated on TR2, but for sure we do know that there's going to be a 24 core. So not positive if that's still going to be 2 active dies or if they're increasing that active die count. But the Velocity STR4 blocks here have been redesigned, and it's more than just RGB LEDs, even though that's what everyone's doing now. So the top, basically, water comes in, splits between the micro fins, and they have coverage over the fins. So it's not direct die in a literal sense, that it's not directly contacting the die, but I believe the phrase that EK was using is targeted die cooling, which is accurate because basically the water comes in, hits the active dies, and there's supposed to be a flow plate, jet flow plate later where you can reorient it. So if you wanted to, you could do an A/B test of where you think the dies are, flip it, and then see if the active dies are actually somewhere else. And this is something we talked about in our Threadripper coverage ages ago, but at the time it looked like pretty much every Threadripper CPU had the same 2 active dies, so it wasn't variable. Presumably this can ship in one configuration, it'll work for everything. With TR2, that's where the question comes in. So if those active dies change for some reason, you would be able to theoretically flip the orientation so that you can still cool everything accurately with the Threadripper 2 CPUs. And that, I think that covers most of EK's stuff. They have a whole lot of it here. We'll have some more information if we do an article. That'll be linked in the description below. And otherwise, as always, go to patreon.com/gamersnexus to help us out directly. Subscribe for more Computex coverage. Go to store.gamersnexus.net to pick up one of our mod mats. I'll see you all next time.